Welcome to Geometry Section 1-1, Finding and Describing Patterns. This is the perfect section to use as an introduction to the course, since finding and describing patterns is so important to geometry. Most of the theorems we have were discovered when someone looked at a collection of problems or figures and noticed a pattern. So patterns are important, and they help us to kind of figure out what geometry is all about. There are a couple different kinds of patterns that we'll talk about in geometry. First, there are visual patterns, and then there are number or numerical patterns. Visual patterns are made up of a set of pictures, geometric figures, or images. Each of the different pieces in a pattern is called a term. In the visual pattern here, we have 3 terms. In the number pattern, there are 5 terms shown. When we're working with patterns, we have 2 basic goals. First, we want to try and find the pattern, and our second goal is to try and describe it. When you're describing a pattern, you want to describe each term with respect to the previous term. So let's start by looking at an example of a visual pattern. In this pattern, I have regular polygons with 3 sides, then 4 sides, then 5 sides. So I could describe this pattern by saying that each figure has one more side than the previous figure. I can use this rule to determine the number of sides in my next term. So 3 sides, 4 sides, 5 sides. My next term should have 6 sides. It should be a hexagon. So now let's move over and talk about this number pattern. In number patterns, one strategy is to look at how the terms change from one to the next. In this pattern, from 3 to 6, I'm adding 3. From 6 to 9, I'm adding another 3. 9 to 12, you add another 3. 12 to 15, another 3. So my rule would say that I'm adding 3 to the previous term. Using that rule, I can add 3 more to 15 and predict the next term to be 18. Now that we have an idea of what different types of patterns will look like, let's see if we can find and describe a couple other patterns. First, we'll look at this visual pattern. In this pattern, I have a semicircle that's being rotated. One strategy for working with visual patterns is to follow just one point from term to term and then sketch the rest of the image from that point. If I look at the point on the bottom right corner of my first term, I can see that in the next term it will be at the bottom left, then the top left. Hopefully you can see that this is a rotation of 90 degrees clockwise. So following my little blue dot, it should be on the top right in the next term and back to the bottom right after that. Let's look at one last numerical pattern now. First, let's use our strategy from last time and map out the difference between each pair of terms. From 4 to 10, I'm adding 6. From 10 to 16, I'm adding another 6. 16 to 22, adding 6. So I would expect this pattern to continue. Using those differences, I can see that I'm adding 6 each time, so that would be my rule. For the next term, I just add 6. So 22 plus 6 is 28. 28 plus 6 is 34. That's all for Section 1-1. Remember, you can re-watch sections of this video if there is anything in this lesson you didn't understand. Thanks for joining me, and happy hypothesizing.